Oilerslive podcast. Oilerslive podcast. Oilerslive podcast. Oilerslive podcast.
Now, get ready to talk hockey. Streaming from the Oilers Live Studio. Subscribe or follow today.
Hey, it's Michael here with another Tuesday edition of Oilers Live. I got Mr. Ryan Lotsberg on tonight. We're going to talk a little bit of Oilers hockey. We may or may not go very long tonight. We'll see how it goes. Just back from a successful heavy hockey showdown in which we raised close to $15,000. I'll do the final tally in the next day or so. But very successful weekend, of which Mr. Ryan Lotsberg played for Team Heavy Hockey, who came out victorious. A little bit of a reffing controversy, but we'll go. I mean, there were 0 calls against Team Heavy Hockey, so we know what that means. Clearly, a little one-sided.
Yeah, Luchansky loves us more. It's okay.
That's right. Thanks for joining, Ryan. It's been a little while. I know you've joined Dursa on his pod, but it's been a little while since I've had you on here. Thanks for joining.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's always a pleasure.
Yeah. I mean, we've had it's been let's talk about it. We're going to talk about it, but it's been a we've got name from Indigenous Rookie Cards in the chat right now, and he says, "Good to see you live again, Michael." Of course, earlier today I went live on Instagram to do a little hockey card unboxing, a tin of the cup I had, and that was pretty exciting. So that was kind of cool. I had a chance to open up. It's the premium of Upper Deck cards. They're thick, like thick cards. They come with game worn patches and actual signed cards. They're pretty cool.
It's awesome.
I'm not a big card guy, but I tell you, I could get into this. Not at $1,400 a box, though. It might be a little bit of time before I start opening up another one. Maybe when the podcast thing starts working out.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah. So back to Oilers and Oilers hockey. It's been really exciting lately. And, I mean, the Oilers are coming out, and other than the other night in Buffalo, which I happened to be at that game. I mean, you can pretty much guarantee a 4-goal night. Like, this team and it's fun to watch. It's fun hockey to watch. I mean, you're a fan. I'm a fan. I mean, what's it been like for you lately? We were at the game together on Friday, watched Leon Draisaitl score the impossible goal and lots of other things. But this, it seems like when I get up to watch a hockey game, an Oilers game, I'm expecting something every single game, and it's been a long time. I mean, you can expect that with Connor McDavid, but it just feels different. Am I wrong?
Oh, you're not wrong. Like, it's definitely been entertaining hockey the last while. Like, you can even go back to the road trip where they're in Columbus and go down 4 goals and we tie the game and then we lose it, right? Like that Boston game and that Boston game was the only real low-scoring game we've had in the last few weeks, it seems like.
Yeah,
And even that was a great hockey game.
it was a great hockey game, right? And the Oilers were, in fact, I thought that was one of the more solid games the Oilers played. Weird that they didn't come out, with more goals, but they looked really good just as a team that game. And they're going into Boston again. I'm feeling good about this. The Oilers going into Boston this go around. I mean, they had that chance. I think they're playing like a team on a mission. And I guess the biggest question mark is going to be Jack Campbell in net, right? I mean, Stuart Skinner came in. I thought he played a hell of a game in Buffalo. Thoughts on him? Thoughts on the goaltending situation?
Yeah, I mean, Skinner is a clear number one right now, and like we knew it when we got Jack Campbell. Jack Campbell is a streaky goalie. Like in Toronto, he was either looking like a Vezina candidate or an AHLer, and we haven't seen the Vezina candidate version of Jack Campbell yet, but we've seen the AHL version of him. And I don't know, it's the first year in a new city on a new team that's not as strong defensively as Toronto. So it's not a huge surprise that we're seeing a bit of a struggle, but it's real bad right now for Campbell.
Yeah, it's not. It hasn't been pretty. We've had a couple games. We've had a few games now with Ekholm and a couple games with Bjugstad. Early thoughts on the new additions to the Oilers?
I'm absolutely loving Ekholm. I think the majority of fans out there with me on that. It stabilizes the back end. He's doing wonders for Bouchard, and I think the biggest thing is that Leon Draisaitl is away from Cody Ceci now. Like Cody Ceci and Leon Draisaitl are kind of dragging each other down. It seemed like they're just not a good pairing for each other. But now you can get Ekholm out there, and you get Bouchard out there with him, someone that can give him the puck. Well, both guys can get Leon the puck up the ice, so I think that only bodes well.
What I mean, and of course, I mean the big thing is the last few days or few games is of course one of the big things is Barrie not being on the power play. I mean, is there anything about Ekholm's game that surprised you? Because there's a couple things for me, maybe rather than you can answer after, but I mean he is a smart D man. I will tell you, I'm glad that I got the chance to watch him live in a couple of games. He doesn't make a lot of errors. He did make an error the other night. I can't remember the exact play, but he went to the wrong guy. But just watching him on live gave me a good indication of some of the things he's doing that you wouldn't see on TV. It happens sort of off the air. I've gone back to watch a little bit of the clips live. I remember there was a 2-on-1, or it looked like it was going to be a 2-on-1, and he's scanning the ice. He sees that the other Oilers player is going to catch up in the 2-on-1, and then makes the right play to break it up. Right, things like that you might not catch if you're watching on TV. But really sort of just a smart defensive player that we kind of knew, I think, or hoped we were getting in Ekholm. But the part that I think has surprised me the most is just how well he moves the puck up the ice. I mean, I've been a little bit surprised at just how solid he is on both sides of the game. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I don't really have anything different to add to that. I think you're exactly right. I think we knew he was a very smart and well-rounded defender, but just how well he can move the puck and get the puck out of our end. Like, just looking at the stats, he's had 5 seasons of over 30 points, and one of those is over 44. It might even be 6 seasons. I think it's 6 seasons where he's over 30 points. So like there's a underrated offensive aspect to his game, and you don't get that without moving the puck out of your own end well. So I think that's the biggest surprise with Ekholm. But I didn't realize just how big he was. He's kind of huge.
He's a giant. I mean, it was neat in Buffalo, being at the game, seeing a guy like Tage Thompson, who's a bit of a giant. I was at the game with Dash, and the funny thing is watching Tage, who's probably the largest goal scorer you'll find in the league in a very long time, but it looks like his pants are too small, and then but the Oilers, like, size for size, they're matching up against these teams now. Kleem, Bukestad, Desharnais, Ekholm. I mean, this is not a small team anymore. And it didn't include, and it's not including a guy that likes to rough it up a little bit right now, which is Evander Kane. We'll talk a little bit about what that means for the Oilers. I want to go just be aware of the chat and the people that are on there. Renegade Man says, "Do you see Campbell possibly being bought out?" Let's just talk about this because it's in the chat. And Campbell's obviously he's had he won. What did he win? 8 in a row in one stretch there.
Might have been 9.
9, yeah, 8 or 9 in a row. He's had moments of brilliance. He's made some saves this year that have been lights out. He's changed his pads. He's done a couple of different things. You talked about it. New team. What if you're able to sit in Ken Holland's shoes and you're going into the off season, do you think that's even an option for this team? I mean, you're a guy that knows the cap situation probably better than any of us at Heavy Hockey. Your thoughts? I mean, is it even worth it to buy a guy like Campbell out in the situation the Oilers are in?
And the thing that always drives me nuts about buyouts is the fact that you're doubling the term of the contract. Yes, you say have some immediate cap savings, but you're paying for the player. In this case, it'd be 8 years down the road. Mm-hmm. 4 years left in the deal after this one, and then you're paying for 8 years. I was just looking at it on Cap Friendly here. I mean, the savings are different. Like, they change for the first 4 years of the buyout, and then in the last 4 years, he's a cap hit of $1,541,667. So you're a little under $3.5 million of savings in the last 4 years of the deal. Like, they're saving quite a bit of money on him. It's just you got to replace him somehow. That's the other thing.
In my mind, when I think about that, that's probably the biggest thing. Is I mean, it's one thing to buy him out; it's another to replace him. Is he? Would he be one of the more expensive backups in the league? Hell yeah, but
yep.
But it is what it is, and your savings that you get may not make that up, right? So Shane's on there. Shane Govro says he gets at least one more season. I think that's probably more likely. Is that doesn't matter what happens through the end of this season. You've got Skinner who's playing well. You give Campbell at least one more season to acclimate to the team, and also, like, let's be honest, the Oilers' defense hasn't been the best, right? Now you got Ekholm in. Maybe the excuses are getting a little bit less, but you still got to give these guys some time with the situation they're in.
Absolutely. I mean, like, Ken Holland's not going to just buy out the remaining 4 years on a guy he just committed 5 years and $25 million to. Like, I really don't see it happening. It would be a convenient way to get a little bit of cap space, sure, but I just don't see it happening.
Yeah, no, I think I agree. Now let's talk Bukestad. Some stranger. That's the tag, and no matter how many times I say it, it still messes me up. Some stranger says need to win those draws. Bukestad is a good addition. I wasn't, obviously I was at the game in Buffalo, so I don't, but he didn't win many draws in Buffalo, I don't think. In fact, I thought he had he made a mistake one game. He hustled in one play. He hustled his way back to kind of make up for his mistake, which to me isn't redeeming. I mean, just don't make the mistake to begin with, right?
Fair.
You don't look like a hero. It's like the big goalie save. That because you're out of position, you gotta flash the big glove. Shane's saying he went 10-0 in the circle in Buffalo.
Yeah, that was the stat that was out there. He went 10-0 against the Sabres this last game.
Jeez. Maybe I was thinking of somebody else. But your thoughts on Bukestad? I mean, we've only seen him for 2 games so far. He's got to have some time. Good addition.
I like it. Like, I didn't think he was gonna have a game where he'd go 10-0 in the faceoff dot. Because
Yeah.
I believe it was last year was the only year in the last 6 where he's had a faceoff percentage over 50%. Like, he's not that good at draws, but I don't know what it is. Last game he seems to be good, but I mean, he's big and he's good on the forecheck, and his goal
But he doesn't
differential on
use
a
his
horrible
size.
Coyotes team is encouraging.
Yeah, he doesn't use his size like Kleem does, right? Like he's big. He gets in there, but he's just big, right? Like it's not.
Yeah, he's not lighting guys up like Kleem
No,
does. But
no.
it's like size is tough to play against. Like, it's reach. You're covering a lot more space in a shorter amount of time. So like, and he's tough to clear out of the front of the net. Like, you got one goal from inside the crease already.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's fair. I'm still, we need to see him a couple more games. I didn't get the challenge I had. Obviously, we had the Heavy Hockey Showdown watch party, so I didn't really get to watch that second Jets game, unfortunately. So I've seen him. I've seen him 1 out of 2 games, and yeah, there were some sides on the defensive side of the puck that I just thought he needed some work on, but we're not. Which scares me a little bit, only that it's that's what you expect a guy like in his role to do, right? Like, that's where you want him to excel. You're certainly not looking for him to be, an offensive juggernaut. So you've got one role and you got to do it well. But hey, one game in, I mean, it's hard to say. I'm happy with the additions. I think at the time, even when Holland announced it or when it got announced, I certainly wasn't complaining about it. It's good to have these guys go down the stretch, especially given the fact that we've got a couple of guys that are banged up a little bit,
And that's exactly what he adds. He adds some depth, and he's an NHL body. He's contributing offense at about a third line pace. Like, I think his production paces out to around 30 points over 82 games, which is great. And yeah, he gives NHL quality. Like I say, a positive goal differential on a horrible Coyotes team is really encouraging.
Yeah. Now, what did you think of Broberg sitting out in Buffalo?
That's one of those things. Like, he's a young player. It's going to happen from time to time. Darnay's played pretty well, and there's a ton of forwards that need ice time right now. So Broberg's in a situation he doesn't have to play all 82, and his game isn't perfect. He's pretty good on the defensive side of the puck, but we need him to develop on the offensive side a little bit more. And Woodcroft's even said that. Like, he knows there's a higher level that Broberg can get to. So maybe a couple games from the press box isn't such a bad idea.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's good. I thought it would have been nice to see him. Obviously I wanted to watch him live in Buffalo, but I didn't get to see him. That's maybe more of a personal thing. And I've liked his game lately, but you're right. Desharnais played well enough as well to stay in. It looked, I was hoping for a little bit of action with him, and who's the guy on Buffalo that he was chirping with all night? I went blank now. Anyway, it looked like Desharnais at some point was gonna drop the gloves in Buffalo. Never happened. Would have been nice to see that, but you know what? He's been playing really well. I love the way he plays, and I still don't think anybody should be too surprised by it. I mean, he was going to make the team, out of camp, if not for injury. Whether he's played NHL games or not, the age for me is a big factor, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
like he's gotten so many more years of professional hockey under his belt than most rookies have. And like, I'll say this about Darnay: like I don't think they make the Ekholm trade if Darnay isn't NHL ready. Right? 'Cause, like their right side right now is CC Bouchard and Darnay. Right, you can move Kulak over if in a pinch if you need to, but like Darnay has earned his way onto this team.
Now, curious. Yeah. So Greenway. It was Greenway. Thank you. Some stranger says something green. It was Greenway. Him and Greenway. I don't know if they showed it on TV or not, but him and Greenway all night were chirping at each other.
Won't lie, I missed the first period. I went out with Jeff Aid and a few other guys from Twitter, and we watched the game at Brewhouse in Sherwood Park. So
Nice.
we were obviously chatting through most of the game. So I didn't watch it with the normal attention to detail that I typically watch it with.
Oh, yeah.
So I missed that little bit.
I thought I was certain the two of them would go at some point, but the way that sometimes it's the pacing of the game. It doesn't make sense for one guy to go or another guy to go, and it just didn't make sense at any time for either of them to spark anything up. But sure looked like if there was going to be any more games between the two teams this year, we'd probably see a little bit of a bout between Darnay and Greenway. And it was good.
Well, that's what we thought about Kulak and the guy from Detroit. Can't remember who it was right now.
Yeah. Not never amounted to anything either. But again, I mean, pacing of the game has so much to do with that, right? And even more so now than it ever did in the NHL. I mean,
yeah, for sure.
Guys are maybe a little bit smarter. Plus, I think the coaches are, instructing them a little bit more in terms of now's a good time to go or now's not the right time to go. So we've got Renegade Man says Bouchard, McLeod, Costin should be the priority this offseason, maybe Bugstad if he performs well. The question is, what is Yamamoto's future with the Oilers? This is a good question. I'd like to talk about this because I was a little bit hard on Yamamoto. What was it? Right before the deadline, right before Puljujarvi got traded. Of course, and again in the Buffalo game, he missed, pretty much an open net.
Yep.
The guy's got brick hands when it comes to that kind of that area around the net, it seems. He's just not been a real finisher. But he's still, Dash was screaming it at the game in Buffalo. I mean, he's still a puck hound, right? Like he still goes out there. He plays against the big guys. He still gets the puck. He does a lot of little things well. But, what do you think about him? I mean, is he the right guy, for the Oilers going forward? And is he doing enough? Is he, is the fact that he's not finishing – you're a stats guy. You watch a lot of these things. Does the eye test and what bears down? Is it the same, like stats wise, or is this a guy that adds value to this team?
I feel like I'm having deja vu because this is the Jesse Puljujarvi conversation all over again.
Yeah, I
doing lots of little things well.
Yeah.
Can't finish. Can't do the big things well. I've said it for the last couple of years, like statistically, Yamamoto and Puljujarvi, they really aren't that much different. And Puljujarvi was actually producing at a higher pace than Yamo even last year. It's just Yamo got more games in than Jesse did. So I really don't see much difference between the two of them aside from the size. And the injury concerns with Yamamoto right now are definitely troubling going forward. So beyond next year, I'm not sure what the future holds for Yamamoto. I think it's going to be a situation where we don't get the 3.1 out of him, which is going to be frustrating for a lot of people. And we have lots of young right wingers coming up behind him. We got Bordeaux, we got Lavoie, we got Ty Tullio, and all of them are playing well in the AHL right now. I don't think any of them are going to be ready out of camp next year, but you never know. So there's definitely some insurance planning happening here.
Yeah, and it was interesting. What do you think? I mean, here's another thing. I mean, Woodcroft reunited the line, right? Nuge, Draisaitl, and Yamamoto for
Yep, they've been good the
good
last few
deal there.
games.
Yeah. McLeod started on the top line. I now again, let's talk stats. I thought, like, I love McLeod. In fact, I'm a big McLeod fan. I think
Yep.
because I've talked about him lots. I think he plays up and down the lineup. I don't think he plays on that top line. Like, and obviously that changed. I couldn't tell you when. At some point, I noticed Fogle up there on the top line. But it just doesn't seem like McLeod ever gets the right chemistry when he's playing with McDavid. Have you looked at those numbers?
I haven't crashed into those numbers or diving into those numbers at all, but it doesn't surprise me. I don't think he's had a ton of time with McDavid, but I don't see a fit for McLeod on a top skill line. Like, I love him as your third line center. Like, last time I looked a few games ago, he had 18 points in 48 games, and I did the math, and it turned out to be like a 32-point pace over 82 games. Like, that's exactly where I want my third line center. If my third line center is getting me 30 points over 82 games, I'm happy. We haven't had that in a long time, and we're finally getting it from Ryan McLeod. It's nice that he can cameo in the top six once in a while, but like, I don't think that should be a consistent thing at all.
Now, obviously, Devon Shore, probably draws out. Poor guy is like in and out of the lineup, in and out of the AHL. In fact, at the charity game on the weekend, Glenn Ma was in and off of Team Heavy Hockey, and he made the comment he feels like Devon Shore. Because that's exactly what we're getting with this guy. It's meme worthy. It's exactly, and he comes in and I've been tough on him on occasion. Woodcroft seems to love him. I actually don't. I've kind of come around to what Woodcroft thinks, and like, here's a guy that just seemingly can come in and out of the lineup and play 5 to 10 minutes a game and still kind of give you real consistent effort. You know what you're getting. It's not going to be anything great. I think he ended up with an assist the other night, against Buffalo, and frankly, that's in oil country. If you can get a fourth liner to get you an assist once in a while, I mean, that's the secondary scoring has always been a bit of a challenge in the last few years, so that's not bad. You assume he comes out if Kane draws back in. I haven't heard if Kane's going to play in Boston yet or not. I haven't looked into it. I mean, there was some talk that he'd play in Boston. Where, who's coming out, right? How do you see this, this forward grouping now that you're talking? And the reason this came into my head is now we've got Bukestad, now we've got McLeod, right? Three. I can't count. Two very capable third line centers, I think. Right? How does this change the dynamic of this line, of these lines with the Oilers, in your opinion? Obviously, you're not going to get a chance to to make them, but your thoughts?
Unfortunately, I'm not in charge.
Yeah.
But I think you're right on that. Like, credit to Devon Shore. He's been fantastic ever since he's been recalled. And like, there's something to be said for going down to the lower level and getting the puck on your stick and making a few plays. And that's exactly what he did in Bakersfield. He came back to the NHL with a lot more confidence, and he's making some stuff happen on that fourth line. But when you look at it, he's waivers exempt now for however many more days, and Nick Bukestad isn't going anywhere because he's a $450K cap hit. Like, he's basically just an extra body that you can have on the roster, so that he's not going anywhere. Like, Shore's the only one that can really go down. Like, we only have 7 defensemen up here, so I don't think you're sending one of them down for cap reasons. So
definitely not.
I'm good. I'm happy to see Shore get some games here because he deserves it and he's playing well. But I think he's the odd man out once Kane comes back.
Yeah, he's definitely the odd man out. I don't think that's debatable. I guess the question that I have is what do you do with this lineup? when you have now you've got, do you just push Bugstad down to a fourth line role and fit him into the Shore position? And maybe at, I mean, this fan base seems so concerned with play versus salary, right? That
I think it's every fan base now.
yeah. And to me, I really, that is just a number that dictates, who can join your team at any given time. Um, if Nurse plays like a $5 million defenseman one night and a $12 million defenseman the other night, it doesn't really bother me where he's at, in terms of salary, as long as he gives you, the right sort of chemistry to make this team win. But if you're that kind of fan and you're looking at that, I mean, Bugstad, I guess what is it, 400K is probably the right guy to fit down on the fourth line in a center role, and if he continues on this torrid face-off pace, maybe you use him in specific situations. But as you say, I've never looked at his face-off numbers. If they're kind of sort of middling, maybe that's just a good night for him and not the norm.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what it was. A good night for him. Like at the beginning of the season, like everyone was talking about how this is the deepest Oilers team since the '80s, right? And like now
I thought so too.
We're getting full health. We're approaching full health, and we've added Bugstad, and like you're starting to see that depth now. So like you got options on that third line. Like I think Fogel's earned his spot there. He's playing real well right now. Janmark has been solid for a long time. McLeod's been really good. I think that's a solid third line, and Costin can go up there. Bugstad can go up there. Derek Ryan can go up there. That's a good fourth line, or it could be a good third line for you too. And you could do any combination of those guys, really. I'm pretty sure Costin and Fogel can both play the right wing if needed. Janmark can play either side. So like there's McLeod can play the wing, Bugstad and Shore, and Ryan can play centers. Like there's lots of options.
Yeah, there are lots of options, and it's kind of nice. And I think as the season is going on, right, and maybe it's utilization, maybe it's a number of different things, but we're seeing more out of some of these players that we haven't seen in a long time. I think Fogel's been pretty solid of late. Wherever he is in the lineup, he's not. We've never expected him to be a showy player, but we have expected him to be able to do that fill-in role, which he did. I think he did quite well in Buffalo, where he can go into the top line if he has to. He's not, obviously you don't want to run him there for a whole season by any stretch, but if he can do those kind of, minutes there once in a while, I think that's what you expect out of Fogel. He's certainly has moments where he looks like he could be an all-star in the league, and then the very next day he's I don't know what happens with him. Is it mental? Is it whatever? But guys like that, one guy I'm kind of curious and would love your thoughts on, and maybe in the chat, is Janmark. I mean, to me, he's a bit of an enigma on this team. He's not scoring a lot of goals. He's getting a few assists. Points wise, he's kind of, middle of the pack. What's he at? Just looking here, he's at 18 points. So he's right up there with, Clem Costin's there. Fogel, he's right up there with Fogel, in that sort of area. Your thoughts on him, and again, I'm counting on your sort of. I know you're a guy that has a good look at the stats once in a while. Because Janmark, I think you got to look at the stats if you're going to like this player. Just because if you say Fogel's not showy or you say somebody's not showy, Janmark's not showy in the least.
No, he's definitely not showy, but like I remember even watching him in Vegas, like he's a smart hockey player. Like he's a good veteran bottom sixer that's not going to make too many mistakes for you. And he can contribute just enough offense to make him real useful. Like he shows his speed quite often. He's really good on the forecheck. I mean, I haven't watched him that closely in the defensive end, but it's quite rare that I see a goal and I was like, oh, Janmark lost his man. Like, it just doesn't
you don't
happen.
talk about him a lot, right? Like, which is
No,
a good thing for a guy like him.
they say that about defensemen, but you can also kind of say it for bottom six forwards too. If we're not talking about him very much, it's a good thing.
Yeah. I just think he gets, and for that reason, he gets a little bit lost in the shuffle, right? I think he got a bad name in Vegas because they were, pushing him into, top line minutes because they had to. They were in an injury situation, and he's certainly not a top six forward. But he's come onto the team. He came a little bit late, just the way the team was comprised, and I think he's stuck because he's, to your point, he's doing a lot of little things well. He's a bit of an enigma to me. I thought maybe that's your next story.
Yeah,
Janmark special.
maybe I'll have to do something on Janmark.
It's all good. It's all good. Shane Govro says, in reference to how deep our team is, deeper than anything since the 06 Cup run for sure. Thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that's entirely accurate. Like, that 06 team, they had to add a bunch at the deadline to get as deep as they got. But no, this truly is the deepest team that we've had in quite a long time. And we haven't even talked about Dylan Holloway yet, right? Like, Holloway's hurt right now, and like he probably won't come back until the playoffs for cap reasons. But here's another guy that can give you quality NHL minutes. It's like we're overflowing with NHL talent right now, and we're not having to rely on AHL guys like Gambardella and Curry to come up and fill roles,
right? Yeah, we've
What's
had
that?
To. Typically we've had to in the past, right? Like that was, come this time of season when we've had to call people up for injury reasons. It's oil countries all talking about who the latest AHL guy is. And that's a good point, right? Like Gambardella or, some of these guys that really shouldn't be playing in the NHL at any point in the
Patrick
season.
Russell.
Yeah,
There's been
exactly, right?
a list of them.
Yeah, so it is kind of nice. It is nice to see this team with a little bit of depth. We did see a Oilers jersey, and it's either the most brilliant troll in Buffalo or somebody who doesn't realize, what they're doing. But we saw a Pronger jersey in Buffalo.
Oh, yeah.
And so I thought, geez, that's probably a Buffalo fan. It's just smart enough to know that seeing that name on the back of an Oilers jersey is going to get my hair on end. It's brilliant.
He knew you were coming.
Yeah, I hope it's just brilliant trolling. I love it. Yeah. Pronger was such a huge part of that 06 Cup run. That's what brought that back to mind. I think though, Shane says has to be a Buffalo fan. That's the only thing I could see. I will say, Oilers fans travel well. We spoke to a few people while we were there. There were, I don't know if it was obvious on the TV, but there were tons of Oilers fans in the crowd. We were surrounded by Oilers fans, and we were right, on the center line kind of thing, about 20 rows up. Great seats. Lots of new fans, Oilers fans that were around. One guy said that he went down to go, get a picture during warm up, and he got there early, and there were already 1,000 fans waiting, to get near the glass. So it was good. I think Oilers fans really do travel well. Let's talk a little bit about Boston upcoming. Boston, as you know, has been on a tear. They're 10 in a row. This is going to be it's going to be a big matchup. I mean, is this one of those games like is this a pivotal game for the Oilers in terms of how they look at themselves as a contender or not? Or is it just a scheduled loss on the on the season?
I think they already look at themselves as contenders, to be honest. Like, I don't think McDavid and Draisaitl are losing any sleep at night wondering whether they're contenders or not. Like, they feel it. But I think for people observing, I think it's a great measuring stick. Like, we just had one right before the deadline, and they came up a little bit short. McDavid got the only 2 goals in the game, and we just didn't have the same attention to detail that Boston did. We make a couple of deals with Ekholm and Bjugstad, and now we get another test against the league's best right after these new additions come into the lineup. So I think it's convenient timing, and I think if anything, it'll give the fans a better sense of where they actually stand, and I think Jay Woodcroft will benefit from this matchup the most.
And, given what we've seen lately, I mean, safe to assume in your mind, in my mind, I think, I mean, I don't want to speak for you, but you think we'll see Skinner in net, I assume. I haven't heard anything to indicate who's going to start in net, but
I'd be shocked if that wasn't the case.
yeah. Oh, did I lose you and you're rejoining?
Yeah, sorry, I'm just going to switch devices here because my phone is going to die.
Okay. All right. Let's get you, there we go. Oh, all right.
I'm here.
Back on.
Audio's probably terrible, but
perfect. Okay, Shane says, can you hear me all right?
yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, you bet. Shane says, I think they will use it as a good measuring stick, although Boston is kind of like Toronto, choking in the playoffs after a crazy regular season. There is, of course, the President's Cup curse. Yeah, and look, I like regular season and playoffs are 2 completely different. And the President's Cup curse is probably the biggest indicator of that. We've got 2 different seasons. Play is considerably different. In some ways, I'm it kind of drives me nuts a little bit. Like I wish that they could find a way to have the same type of play, like that the regular season was some indicator of playoff success, but it's not.
It really isn't.
No, it's not. So I'm just going to get you to, let's check your mic volume's a little bit low.
Yeah, let me actually go grab my mic. Give me a sec.
Okay. So Shane says they're worrying about crushing the West before who they face in the East at the end. 100% agree. That's the way it's going to be. So if we're looking at while we're waiting for Lotzi to rejoin, and Lotzi, just give me the thumbs up when you're ready, and I'll draw you back in there. Oilers. Right now, they came into, in my mind, and we'll get Ryan back. But the Oilers played, a great game against Boston the last game. And I thought, in given any other team, they probably played well enough to win. Playing against Toronto, we talked about Toronto playing against Toronto 5-2. That's another sort of measuring stick, if you will, for these top teams in the league. I think that these last few games are kind of like, if you listen and maybe Ryan, let's do a quick mic check with you. You good?
Mic check.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
I think you're good. Yeah. I think these last few games have really kind of, I talk about this on the stream all the time is I listen to a lot of NHL media around the league since the deadline. I think Holland did, well. We all agree he did well picking up Ekholm and Bjugstad. Money Puck, all of these odd sites. Hey, look, the Oilers have got a team. Now, everybody in the world that knows I'm an Oilers fan, which is just about everybody in the world, texted me after that second Campbell game, the second Jets game, and said, Oilers can't, win 8-6 anymore every single game with Campbell in net. That's a big indicator of where, the Oilers are. And so, people come to me and they say, well, can the Oilers win games with their goaltending? And I think we answered that question last night in Buffalo. And the answer is yes, but it might not be the goaltender you expected it was going to be at the
Yeah.
beginning of the season. And so, we go into Boston tomorrow. I think if the Oilers just compete, right, that's the measuring stick. You just want to see that level of compete, that it's close. Boston regular season right now, they seem unbeatable for the most part.
Yeah, like they're playing fantastic hockey. And like we saw it last week already. Like the Oilers can compete. It's just getting over that threshold or getting over that bump and actually beating them. Like there's 3 reasons why Stuart Skinner can lead the Oilers as far as they want to go. Those reasons are Cam Ward, Matt Murray, and Jordan Binnington. Cam Ward won the cup with the Hurricanes as a rookie. He came in as a backup in the first round and took them all away. Matt Murray was won 2 Stanley Cups in his first 2 years, and kind of same idea as Ward. Backup, came in, stole the starting job in the playoffs, and never looked back. Binnington, Blues were in last place in January of 19, and then they won the cup. So, like, it's not out of the realm of possibility for Stuart Skinner to lead the Oilers to the promised land. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but there's no reason to think it can't.
Yeah. Yeah. And, here's the other thing that I think, when I'm thinking about this team, and I don't want to sound too excited because, Shane brings it up. Win or lose, I just want to see actual effort. I'm still traumatized from the decade of darkness. I mean, as Oilers fans, there is a little bit of trauma there. I'm trying to look at, positive ways to, where this team can go as in this year's playoffs, how the team is trending. I think they're trending up. I think, all of the, so-called quote unquote analysts around the league are starting to see the Oilers as a true contender. They're looking at this team. They see some upgrades in defense. They're obviously the biggest question mark is whether Campbell, and if Campbell gets streaky, I think that's lights out for any team in the league, right? Like, because when he does get streaky, he's an all-star goalie. And so, whether, and then you have a guy who's played pretty consistently across the season in Skinner. So I'm not really worried about the goaltending. And the one thing that really kind of gets me excited as far as the Oilers are concerned is the season Connor McDavid is having is one of those seasons that in any professional league, you see a guy, like Mahomes or somebody like that finally flips the switch and says, I'm going to take it on myself. And I'm actually, and that's been the, I think anyway, some of the criticism of McDavid is that he hasn't, taken it upon himself to win this team, games. It's still a team game, obviously, but he's willing games now. Like he comes in there and he's starting to do things that we haven't seen done in 20 plus years. And we haven't seen a season like this in 20 plus years. And I think that, McDavid has learned, he's started to mature. He's at that part, in his career where he realizes, it's hard to say he never realized how good he was, but where I think that, he's just at that next level. He's that guy now, that guy in any professional league, whether it's football or hockey or baseball or whatever, that's just sort of said, like, I'm ready to take the next step. And I'm not going to lead the team, but I'm going to take everybody with me, right? Like I'm going to drag them into the championship, whether they're willing to do it or not. That's the kind of season he's having, right? Like it's next level. Last night in Buffalo, right? Like, like another 2-goal game. I mean, I joked about it the other night that if McDavid doesn't get 3 goals or 3 points in a night, I start to wonder if he's injured, right? and
Yeah.
and shit. I mean, we're seeing something we haven't seen in a while, which is if he doesn't get 2 goals in a night, we're starting to wonder like what's going on here, right? Like
Yeah,
he
6
only
out of the
missed,
last 8, he's got 2 goals in. Like,
yeah, it's
go,
pretty ridiculous, right? So
yeah, it's old
anyway, I
hat
mean,
trick
your
now.
thoughts on that? I mean, Shane says he's carried the team since he's been here. Now that he has some help, he's in beast mode. And I mean, maybe that's the accuracy of it, right?
Yeah, like we're seeing peak McDavid right now, or at least we're approaching it. You'd think we'd have to be approaching it if it isn't already. But you're starting to see it, like when you say he's dragging the team with them and forcing them to success. Like when I watched him against LA in Game 7 and Game 6 last year, like he's laying the body out. He's doing little things that he wouldn't normally necessarily do, but you need everybody to do if you're going to win. And then on top of that, he's winning the playoff scoring race in 3 rounds.
Yeah,
right?
that
Like
was unreal.
It's unbelievable. And like we're seeing an elevated version of that. I don't know if you saw the video that Ryan Rashad put out on TSN today about what McDavid's doing to score more goals. But it was a pretty good watch. It's 5 minutes long, but just talking about how he's studied Matthews a little bit and how he's learned to shoot through defenders and how defenders are backing off on him thinking they're going to get beat wide. So now he's like, okay, fine. I'll take what you give me and I'll shoot it through you and score. Right. So, and he's saying like, once they respect the shot, just like a basketball defender, then that's when you can start to beat them wide again. So like he's playing chess and everyone else is playing checkers. And it's
Yeah,
hard to not like hard to count them as anything but contenders when you have McDavid on the team, and then Draisaitl too, second in the league in scoring, very quietly.
Yeah, well, and isn't that the truth, right? Like he's, I think this is this year could be considered sort of an off year for Draisaitl.
Yeah.
if not a good year for McDavid, an off year for Draisaitl. And then all of a sudden, Draisaitl's up there fighting for second place in goals, just out of nowhere. Of course, it always helps, when you're scoring seemingly at will in the last few games. He's doing a great job, and the hat trick doesn't hurt.
Nope.
Yeah, as Shane says, I mean, he only has 41 goals. Yeah.
No, sorry, my battery's gonna die on my computer too. I'm having a bad tech night. 1 sec.
All right. While we wait for Lotsburg and we're closing in on the end of the show tonight. We've got Boston, a couple days off for the Oilers. They got Boston on Thursday night. It's an early game in terms of Edmonton time at 5:30, and then again Saturday against the Leafs. That one will be on Hockey Night in Canada. I love that. Shane's now chirping you, Ryan. He says, "Pay your power bill." Yeah, it's all good. And so, to complete this road trip, I don't think of this that Jets game as really the beginning of the road trip. I mean, it's a back-to-back. It's kind of, Buffalo game. That's the real road trip right there. They go in. Do they need to get one of these next two for it to be a success? I mean, these are two. Obviously, Toronto's not an easy out, as much as Oilers fans would love to think that. It's a team again, like tonight, they came back. Maybe Matthews isn't scoring like he would be, but for the most part, this team's been pretty solid all year, right? Like they're a contender as well, and they beat the Devils tonight, which is not an easy task this year either. If they do happen to go 0-2 in the next two games, is that a big fail, or is that just indication that they were up against two hard teams.
Yeah, it's a blip in the radar. Like it's a bump in the road. I don't think it's dire. Like the playoff teams in the West are basically set, I would say. We're just fighting for seeding right now. Like I honestly kind of don't even want to win the division because I don't want to end up against some of those wild card teams in the Central. Like,
Yeah.
right? Like I think the
Yeah.
better matchups for us lie in the 2-3 seed in the Pacific. So I don't think it's dire straits if we lose the next two. I mean, it'd be nice to get on a bit of a roll here because we've been playing 500 hockey for the last like 3-4 weeks with all those overtime games. But yeah, winning one of the next two would be nice. Like I'm not going to cry if we don't. But yeah, 2 years, like you're saying, it's two hard teams on the road. So if you get one of those, I think that's good enough.
Yeah, I mean we've been kind of asking for this team to give a little bit of space between themselves and the bottom of the wild card, right? And they've done that. And so, I think that at this point of the season, yeah, if you lose a couple like they do, it might be a little bit troubling in that they, as you said, they've been a 500 team of late. I think they need to get back on a bit of a stretch. And I think they need to show well against some of the good teams in the league. I mean, part of this record is we had a stretch of teams that were, in the bottom half of the league, right? And the Oilers were doing well against them. I think it would be nice to see the Oilers come out of here, with 1-2. And the other thing though, I want them to win the division.
It'd be nice.
Yeah.
It'd be cool.
For the main thought, I know playing a wild card team, in the likes of potentially Colorado, or Minnesota or Winnipeg, right? Like I think that would be a tough out in your first round. But I'm all right with that. It just seems, the Oilers seem to have this block when it comes for a chance at finishing first in the division. It would be nice to get that monkey off the back and then just go for it. And the other teams are peaking right now. Like LA's won 4 in a row, and Seattle's just been consistent all year. Nothing showy. Just they had that one stretch I think where they won 7 or 8 in a row, and NHL Network declared them Stanley Cup champions. Which drove me nuts, but it'd be nice. I think it'd be nice. This to me is it's not a loss by any stretch. It is a bit of a blip if they don't win the next at least one of the next two. But I'd like to see them come out of there with one of the next two and a good showing in both games to kind of give us an earmark of what we can expect come playoff time.
Yeah, for sure.
These are two good teams. All right, we've been on this for about an hour. We're I think we'll call it a night. I want to say thanks, Ryan, for joining as always. A little bit last minute. I just flew back, got home today from a long whirlwind tour that included 4 different cities and a charity hockey game and watch party and a whole bunch of other things, and 2 Oilers games in there, and 2 of my own hockey games, not that on top of the charity game. So it's been a busy week for me, but really great. I have to say that the for all of the hard times we give Oilers fans, Glenn's tripping me on there. sees the picture. I'm just Glenn's there in the shadows for how long tonight, and then gets a chat in at the end there. So for those that don't know, Ryan got the print thanks to Keith Moore in the silent auction at the Heavy Hockey Showdown, which was a huge success. So all of this to say, like Oilers fans, get a hard time sometimes, but when it comes to events like the Heavy Hockey Showdown for charity or for anything like that, they step up. This between us and Oilers Girls Night, which will be happening this upcoming weekend, we're going to raise close to 20 to 25 grand in support of the Sexual Assault Center of Edmonton, which is in a bit of a funding crisis. They're 15-month wait list. If you put that into dollars, that into something that makes sense, something tangible, it's about 250 hours of counseling for folks that are suffering out there. And so all to say, that's Oiler fans. Like, it goes without saying, we've got friends on Twitter and that do events like this. It's crazy how Oiler fans, I talked about them getting out to support the team. Like, we're negative about a lot of different things and stuff, like whether it's the nurse contract or whatever, we're sometimes it's overused. We're passionate fans. But I think at the end of the day, like I come back to, events like what we did on the weekend, and it sort of warms my heart that Oilers fans are as passionate as they are. They care about the team. That's why they keep coming out. Brian Lawton was on Stauffer one time. I mean, he's on there all the time, but he was on there one time talking about was it Tampa Bay? He was GM, right, for a little while, and he said, like, look, Bob, you're lucky to have, or the Oilers are lucky to have fans that care, right? He said, like, if they're not complaining, then they don't even care at all. And so, Oilers fans care. They don't just care about the team; they care about the Oilers community and all of those little things around it. It's fantastic. It's really good. It's good. I feel very fortunate to be a part of it. One last thing too is you see these hats, these heavy hockey hats. Of course, Connor came pretty damn close to scoring a hat trick in Buffalo, and some of the guys were chirping us in the heavy hockey group chat about whether or not we'd be throwing the hats. Both Dash and I were wearing our heavy hockey hats. And you're damn right. So I'm going to throw that hat. I'm not going to do a Kachuk and throw that kind of karma on the team. I can replace this particular hat and get another one, which I'd be happy to. In fact, both Dash and I had our video cameras ready to show the hat and then the toss, which never happened. The heavy hockey hats will be on the ice if ever an Oiler player scores a hat trick. I'll be happy to replace any of the guys' hats if that comes about. So anyway, all of that, it's great. I think I'll give my prediction on what the Oilers do in the next. We've got only 2 games between now and Tuesday. You know what? I'm going to go all Oilers fan and say the Oilers are going to win both back to back and make it a 3-game sweep on the road against 2 of the toughest teams in the league right now and 2 of the hottest teams in the league. I think Toronto's like 7-3-0 in their last 10. But the Oilers are feeling it. And I think, the additions make this a pretty powerful team. Hope to see, I think, another thing that, we haven't seen when Evander Kane's in the lineup, it's a different team, right? Whether he's scoring or not, it's a different team. And I love this team when he's in the lineup. And I can't believe I'm saying that because at one point I was on the negative side of having Evander Kane. And not even just for all the shit that surrounds him, but I saw him play years ago in Buffalo many a time. And he's just disinterested with the way, with playing in the league and all of these other things. But now as an Oiler, he's different and he's doing all the right things. And I hope he's playing in Boston, and I sure hope he's playing in Toronto. and I love the way this team plays when they play with a little bit of grit. And there's another thing Connor McDavid's been doing a little bit more of this year, playing with a little bit of grit. We always get that from Draisaitl. You get the last word as usual. Do you know what happened between Skinner and McDavid at the end of the game?
I missed that.
Okay. Well, I don't know if they showed it on air, but Skinner went after McDavid and they after the horn went. Not in it wasn't a big thing, but Skinner was pissed off about something McDavid did. So I'd love to find that out. May never know now, but anyway.
Makes one All-Star game and it goes to his head.
That's right. Exactly. All right. As is the case always, I give the last word up to my guest, Mr. Ryan Lotsberg. Thank you again, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. Ryan gets the last word. When you're done, just say goodnight and we'll call it a night. Everybody else, tune in next Tuesday. We'll be back here. Who knows who my guest will be, but enjoyed the chat tonight. Thanks to Shane, Renegade Man, Some Stranger, Glenn pipes in for a little bit there. That's nice. Take it away, Ryan. You get the last word.
All right. We're in that little stretch after the trade deadline where teams start to adjust to life with their new players, and the new players start to adjust to life with their new teams. So there's going to be a little bit of an adjustment period for everybody involved, but we've got a good 20 or so games left to right the ship and get things headed in a positive direction for the playoffs. And I think you'll see this Oilers team get stronger as the regular season starts to wind down here, as everyone gets more used to their new roles. We get some routine in the bottom six, and Ekholm and Bouchard continue to get more comfortable with each other. So I think there's a lot of good things ahead for the Oilers. The schedule gets easier after these two games this week. So there's lots of head-to-head matchups against teams that we're competing with in the Pacific Division as well. So I think we're in a good spot here. But I want to use my last word to talk more about the Heavy Hockey Showdown and to thank Michael and all the organizing committee for all the work that they put in to organize such a great event. And to thank you to everybody who came out and supported, whether you just came to the game, whether you donated, whether you came out the first round and watched. It was a fantastic event and a great day for everyone involved. And I know there was a lot of people there that I haven't had the opportunity to meet yet and would love to meet someday. So hopefully that happens somewhere down the road here, hopefully at the next Heavy Hockey Showdown. So yeah, thanks again to everybody involved. And with that, I will say good night and thanks for tuning in.
Oilers Live